Welcome back to the Arise interview. To Nigeria now, where after hours of deliberation, the Senate of the Federal Republic said it will consult with the House of Representatives on how to respond to President Muhammadu Buhari's rejection of the Electoral Act Bill. President Buhari had explained that his decision to withhold assent to the electoral bill was informed by advice from relevant ministries, departments, and agencies of government after a thorough review. He said signing the bill into law would have serious adverse legal, financial, economic, and security consequences on the country. He added that it will also impact negatively on the rights of citizens to participate in the government as constitutionally ensured. Joining me now in the studio is a member of the House of Representatives, Mr. Sam Onuigbo, representing Ikwano, Umuahia North and South Federal Constituency from Abia State. Honorable, you are welcome to the Arise interview.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Honorable, 2 days ago, Nigerians heard that the president had withheld assent from the Electoral Amendment Bill. And there were reports immediately that members of the House of Representatives and the Senate were galvanizing to muster the two-thirds majority to override the veto. But none of the chambers did that. The House said it will decide in January. The Senate said it will consult with the House. What exactly happened?
Well, thank you very much indeed. Both chambers are abiding by the law, by the provisions of the Constitution. Because for you to pass a bill, it must have the input of both chambers. So assuming the Senate had gone ahead to say, okay, we override, and by January the House fails to do the same, it becomes an exercise in futility. So there must be consultation between the two chambers before they can take a decision.
Yes,
you know, if you check Section 4 of the Constitution, which makes the legislative arm, of course, the first arm of government, that's where it is provided that there shall be a National Assembly consisting of the House of Representatives and the Senate. And if you go further and check some other sections, even if you go to Section 58, you would find that, look, no one house or one chamber can go ahead. So wanting to consult is absolutely in order.
Honorable, what are the options? Because since Monday, I have heard lawyers saying the House has only one option, some said two. What are the options before legislators in this matter that the president has withheld assent to a very important bill, which is the Electoral Amendment Bill? What options do you really have? I'm talking about all the options now, not necessarily the one you are going to exercise.
Well, the one we have to exercise, any option must be something that is provided for, or consultations. We are running a constitutional government where you have to follow the ground norm and its provisions. So, like I said, Section 4 made it clear, we are number one, we have the legislative powers of the Federation. And when you exercise it, then it's also subjected to some kind of checks. Then, if you go to Section 58, you would find then that in a situation where the president decides, you know, for whatever reason, maybe reasons he has adduced, or some other reasons to withhold an assent, the National Assembly has a clear option, which they have exercised on a number of occasions, which is to come together and override his veto. But you can see where we are. We're almost into festive season. And this happened almost a day or two before Christmas. So I have a feeling that we will go back. Do not forget that we are employees of the electorate. So there's need for us to get back, consult with them with this opportunity And then we come back and now either override by way of totally overriding his veto, or we could also consider, if we want to go that route, taking away some of those contentious provisions in order to allow this very important bill, like you put it, to go ahead. Let me make a point. I was a member of the Joint Technical Committee on the Electoral Act that's working with the Senate. I represented the Southeast. And we did not even enjoy the last Christmas fully, because we were recalled to come back and work on this in the hope that we are going to get this passed and assented to quickly. But you know, so there were some other, you know, interventions, negative interventions. So I have to underscore the point that we are employees of the electorate. You recall that when one chamber did not go along with the other chamber, you know, when we passed the Electoral Amendment Act, you saw that the employers reacted, made their protest known for some one of the chambers to go back and review their position. So the employers are still there watching, and some of them have started putting their views and feelings across. So we have to draw strength from them.
But Honorable, what is your own personal feeling about the reasons that the President adduced in his letter for withholding assent, in particular about the cost implications of forcing all the parties to do direct primaries, the security implications, and also what he said are the implications for democracy of forcing parties instead of giving them a choice? What is your own personal feeling about this?
Well, my feeling as someone who participated in the process, I just mentioned here that I represented, you know, I served on that Joint Technical Committee, did not enjoy my Christmas and New Year as is customary for those of us who are serving the people, where you have to meet with your constituents and all that. I had to come back early. And we did extensive jobs, so that we will start early, about 9, and finish about 10. It was quite hectic for us. However, having finished with that, even when we got to the floor, some other persons voted differently, including maybe 1 or 2 persons who participated in that Joint Technical Committee. But the resolution of the House, the resolution of the National Assembly is what we have submitted to Mr. President. And you are gauging the mood of the nation, the reaction of the people. That's my personal reaction to your question of how I feel.
You are gauging the mood of the people.
I say that you are already gauging the mood. For me, having participated in this, where it involved INEC, the civil society organization, the Ministry of Justice and all that, extensive job. For me to see it not go through is something that, you know, is capable of making me feel a little bit dampened. However, on the issue of costs, let me make the point. I'm not going to, you know, say, oh.
Okay, let's be brief about that. About the cost.
The issue of cost.
We are sending out now.
Which one is more important now? A cost that allows.
Okay, I'm sorry, Honorable. I will have to interrupt you. We are going on a short break, but we will come back to the issue. Thank you very much. Yes, you are watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead. Welcome back to the Arise interview, where we speak to the newsmakers as well as ordinary people doing extraordinary things around the world and featuring the voices at the heart of the stories. I'm Mahmoud Jega. My guest today is Mr. Sam Onuigbo, a politician and member of the House of Representatives. He has vast experience in the private and public sectors, with top jobs at the Nigerian Institute of Management and the U.S. Embassy under his belt. He has now set his sights on climate change in Nigeria by sponsoring a bill to change Africa's largest oil-producing country into a greener economy. The bill, which was signed into law by President Buhari last month, sees Nigeria join an elite group of countries that have enacted legislation aimed at eliminating carbon emissions. Nigeria is ranked as one of the world's most vulnerable countries to climate change, and increases in temperature, frequent flooding, and droughts show that the country can no longer ignore the effects of the climate crisis. So what solutions can the Climate Change Act offer? Honorable, I'm sorry I interrupted you when we were discussing about the Electoral Act. You were making a point about what the president said about the cost of holding direct primaries. Maybe you finish that point before we discuss the climate issue.
Yes, you raised the point about the costs, of election during the primary election. But I had earlier mentioned that we are employees of the electorate. Yes. And I think the wisdom behind the National Assembly passing this to have a direct primary is to allow those who employ us to participate in shortlisting their employees. Yes. And in such exercise, it's important that the best, those who want to work, not those who can use whatever other means to manipulate themselves into power, and who at the end of the day do not deliver. Instead, they look for other means because they are used to it. If it costs you money to get the best of the people to serve you, they'll serve you, save more money than having some other challenges that we have suffered in the last almost 25 years of democratic dispensation. So the cost you spend now is by far less than the one you are likely to incur if you continue with a system that probably has not served you well. That's the wisdom.
Thank you very much, Honorable. That was an important point. Now we discuss the climate change. As the main sponsor of the Climate Change Act, you are quoted recently to have said that with the signing of this act, Nigeria is now on the threshold of prosperity and greatness. What do you mean by that?
Well, I don't know if you read the Punch of yesterday, of what is going on, when we're talking about building back better, having a green economy, a sustainable economy. You saw that even in Port Harcourt, the suit that people are inhaling over there is creating serious health problem. So if we have this Climate Change Act properly implemented, properly reported and monitored, we will go a long way. One, in ensuring that we are able to develop in a sustainable way. Right now, it's almost like a trial and error. And remember that so many countries are transiting rapidly. And this is a fossil fuel dependent economy. So these acts will help us to organize ourselves, make sure we are developing along a line that we can monitor and report, and not in a haphazard manner. That's the import.
Well, that's interesting. Well, the law speaks about Nigeria trying to, to set a deadline for attaining net zero emissions for Nigeria. How feasible is that? Right now, most of our energy is petroleum, kerosene, diesel, gas, coal, even firewood. How feasible really is it, and what is the timeline for Nigeria achieving net zero emission of carbon?
Okay, very feasible. If you listen to Mr. President when he spoke at Glasgow, he gave 2060 as a time to attain net zero. But if you also check within the Act, we made a provision that's a little bit wider, because we know that it's a challenge. Like I mentioned a few minutes ago, this is a fossil fuel-based economy. Everything we are doing, like you mentioned, is based on oil, is based on gas, some measure of coal, and all that. However, the world is moving, the world is transiting. And you know that if we do not join in preparing properly, in a coordinated and properly supervised way to transit, we run the risk, one, of being left behind, and then two, of seeing just before our very clear eyes that we are having stranded critical assets with us. So it's important for us to begin now to plan. Because if you check, like for instance, Britain, for instance, has renewable after about 44%. If you check Germany too, just like that, I think they're at about 22. And people are thinking of other ways, knowing full well that a company like Shell was stopped by their own Dutch court, saying they should stop the rate of emissions that they are contributing. The International Energy Agency that was founded, I think, in 1974, so to ensure that there is a free flow of oil, came up with a memo saying they should reduce or even stop prospecting for gas and oil. And if you recall, during the visit of the U.S. Secretary of State, this matter came up when our foreign minister spoke to him about some of the challenges that we are likely to encounter, if we were to go at the rate that they were going. So if it wasn't a concern to us as a nation, I don't think our foreign minister would have raised such a matter. So you see what I'm saying? It's important for us to begin now to work, and that's why this bill is this act is absolutely important, and that's why Mr. President, assented to it. It's
very important.
Swiftly.
Now the bill, the act now provides for a climate change fund. What is the source of fund? What is the source of money for this fund, and what exactly will it be used for?
Well, climate change fund is to ensure that there is fund for tackling these challenges, and to ensure that whatever money that is appropriated by the National Assembly is kept in a place where you can see it and account for it. It's also to ensure that all the money that is coming in for the issues of climate change that are kept in silos now, different agencies, managing them without proper reporting, that they are coordinated, monitored, and reported both to the National Council on Climate Change, which is the organ that will be chaired by Mr. President, in his absence, the Vice President, with all these ministers from agri, environment, transportation, petroleum, water resources, women affairs, and of course, the Governors Forum chairman, as well as the Argonne president. And of course, the National Security Advisor and the Central Bank Governor. It's a key council. So these councils, they will take interest. They will have to oversee the fund and have proper reporting and proper monitoring. Right now, it's not there.
Well, the law also provides for a National Council on Climate Change made up of all these very top officials that you said. That was a month ago that the law was passed. Although the transition period is a bit long, up to 2060. But have we started? Has this council been formed, for example?
Thank you very much. The council has now been inaugurated. You introduced me as a member of the House of Representatives, which means I'm a legislator. So our business is to make laws for the order, peace, and good governance of the Federation. That we have done. What is left now is with the executive. But I have no doubt whatsoever that given the threats that we are facing, in fact, that we have experienced from climate change, whether you're talking about the challenge from the Sahel down to what led to the Great Green War, where we have 11 northern states that are directly impacted by desertification and drought, and then going down to Lake Chad, where we have lost that even very important, area where we have gone down from 25,000 square miles to about 2,500, and then pushing over 30 million or so people who previously depended on that lake, either for farming, animal husbandry, or fishing. They are now, moving around, and don't ask me why you think the crisis started so much in the Northeast, because there's security implication to that. And of course, the United Nations saw that way back in 2009. That's why they passed 63281 resolution on the security implications of climate change. So having seen that, and Mr. President having known that, having participated, having made the promise, on the 29th of May 2015, that he was going to tackle climate change, I have no doubt whatsoever that will be the council will soon be inaugurated.
How painful will the transition be for us now as Nigerians to the green economy? It is the way to go, as you explained, but how painful? Because if people can no longer use kerosene, firewood, and things like that, is it going to be, does it promise to be a painful transition?
Well, it's going to be a transition that we must go through. Talking about how painful, it's like we are trying to make it impossible. It's going to be a little bit tough, we must admit that. However, what is the option? Not to transit? To be left with stranded critical assets?
Yeah.
Those options are not, they are not there. Well, it's nothing to be considered. However, it's important for us to start early to begin to transit, because other countries, what we saw when we went to Glasgow was absolutely troubling, because so many countries are transiting rapidly. Okay, for instance, in Glasgow, over 22 countries got together and said they were going to participate in defunding gas and fuel. That they were not going to support that. That was what I alluded to, you know, when I talked about our foreign minister talking to the secretary. Because when you have 22 very powerful countries who buy oil, buy gas from us, saying they are not going to support funding this, that's a challenge. So we have to start early to move. But let me also cite an instance. When we were trying to get, you know, do telecommunications privatization, if you recall, anybody who was working with, what do you call them? Is it not INEC? The company that was doing telecommunication in Nigeria. They used to put their ID card here as very powerful people. When it was considered that we're going to go into mobile, NITEL, you know, they seemed so important, so invincible. When it was considered, it seemed impossible. But today, you can see how the transition has gone. You see the employment has been created. So we have to take a step forward.
Okay. So how about the 2060 time plan? Do you think it is too long? Because some people will say, you know, you pass a law and say 2060, by then the president will be gone, the members of the National Assembly will be gone. Are we really confident that the country can sustain? This country is fond of abandoning key projects.
Okay. I have to interpret clearly what you meant by the president will be gone and the National Assembly will go, because, you know, writers like James Harrington, they talked about tenure, checks, you know, and balances, constitutionalism. Do you understand? It means a government is a continuum. When the president finishes in the next maybe 18 months or so, another president will come. The Nigerian nation is still there. President Obasanjo started, you know, privatization of the telecommunications industry. Is he still here? No, he has long served a tenure and left. And others are continuing.
Thank you very much, Honorable, for your deep and very important insight into the climate change issue as well as the electoral amendment imbroglio.